Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to know about the different types of schedulers in the CPU scheduling. So first of all we will see what is about the CPU scheduling. The CPU scheduling is the basis of the multi-programming operating system, and the idea is quite simple that multi-programming in the case of multi-programming, if a process is waiting for an input or output request, then the CPU won't sit idle. It switches from that job to the another job. So the CPU is always busy in doing some work. Okay. So the CPU scheduling algorithm determines how the CPU will be allocated to the process. And the CPU scheduling algorithms are of two types, that is preemptive algorithm and non-preemptive algorithms. Non-preemptive scheduling algorithms. In the case of the non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, once the CPU is assigned to a process, then the processor do not release that particular process until the execution completes. Whereas in the case of the preemptive scheduling algorithm, the CPU can release the process even in the middle of the execution. So there will be some continuous context switching between the different process by the CPU. And in the case of the non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, so the if a CPU holds a particular process, it will completely execute that particular process and then leaves it. But in the case of the preemptive scheduling algorithm, um, so the CPU is going to execute some part of the process, and then after a while it will execute the other part of the process. So there will be some context switch between the different process in the case of the preemptive scheduling algorithm. Simply saying, uh, in the case of preemptive, so there will be some intervals or there will be some disturbance while executing a process. So we are going to save the context of the process and then load another process for execution, and so after that, so the whole process is again resumed for execution. Okay, so simply it is like playing a video. So while we are watching a video, so I got some, suppose I am watching a video here, and while watching the movie I got a phone call. So then I will pause the video, okay, and then answer my phone call. After completing my phone call, I will again play the video. So similarly, the preemptive scheduling algorithm is like that only. Okay, in the case of the non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, so it is going to execute a process completely. Okay, so these are the two types of scheduling algorithms. So we are going to know about this non-preemptive and preemptive in brief in the upcoming videos. So now coming to the schedulers. So we are having the three types of schedulers. That is short-term scheduler or CP scheduler, long-term scheduler or job scheduler, medium-term scheduler. So these are the three types of schedulers. So before going to know about the schedulers, so we must know about the different states of a process. So process is having a five types of states. That is a new state, a ready state, a running state, waiting state, waiting or blocked state, or exit state. So these are the different states of a process. If a process is created, then it must be in any of these five states. Okay. So first of all, coming to the short-term scheduler. So how it is going to work? So it selects one process, one job from ready queue and schedules it onto running state. So that means it is going to select a particular process from the ready queue and schedules it to the running state. Okay. See, if you want to know about the process states, so how it is going to execute, I am going to explain you with a simple example here. So in the case of a computer, there will be two types of memories, right? Secondary memory and primary memory. So primary memory is also called as a main memory. So a secondary memory means it is a hard disk, and main memory, that is a RAM. Okay, so this is the main memory, and secondary memory, that is the hard disk. Main memory is the RAM and CPU. Okay, so CPU. If your computer wants to execute a particular program, that program must reside in the main memory. Then only the processor or CPU can execute the program. Okay, so it will fetch the particular program from secondary memory to main memory, and if the program is in the main memory, then CPU can execute that particular program. Okay. Okay, so since the size of the main memory is small, so we are going to store the um, the programs in the secondary memory. So if you want to execute any job or process, so it must be present in the main memory, then only the CPU can execute that process. So similarly, so this scenario we are going to apply for the process states. Okay, see, in the case of a new state, so if a process is created, then so that means a program is fetched from the secondary memory and placed in the main memory. That is called as a creation of a process. Okay, that is a new state. And in the ready queue, so ready queue means, so if a process is ready to execute, okay, so that is called as the ready state. Okay, suppose here a process is fetched from secondary memory to main memory. That process is called as process creation. That is a new state. That is transferring the program from secondary memory to main memory is called as a new state. We can consider that as a new state. And in the main memory, in the case of the ready queue, okay, if your process is ready to execute, so you can consider the ready queue as a main memory. So the main memory will be having set of process to execute. Okay, here ready queue are having set of process to execute. If your CPU points to the particular program, then it will start executing, right? So if your CPU points to the particular process, then the program will start running. Okay, so all the process in the ready queue are ready to execute. So if your CPU points to the particular program, then the process enters the running state. Okay, right. So this scenario, so simply these we are going to apply for the schedulers. Okay, so in the case of the schedulers, so we are having the 5 states, right? New state, ready state, running, block and exit state. Okay, so if there is any input output wait while running a program, so it may enter any 2 states, that is a block state or waiting state and exit state. That means termination of the process. Okay, in the case of the long-term scheduler, so long-term scheduler, what happens? The function of the long-term scheduler is to select the job from the pool of jobs and load the jobs into the main memory, that is the ready queue of the computer. So the long-term scheduler is also called as the job scheduler. Okay, so it is going to select the jobs from the main memory, that is in the ready queue. So in the ready queue there are set of jobs placed. So this will be placed by in the case of the long-term scheduler. So the jobs are transferred from the hard disk to the ready queue. See, in the last example we have seen, right, from the secondary memory to the main memory, the programs are transferred. So that is called as a, so that state is called as new state, right? So here main memory, we can consider the main memory as a ready queue. So there are set of process in the process in the ready queue for execution. So if a process is brought for execution from secondary memory to main memory, it is called as a new state, or okay, you can consider that as a new state. So if you transfer the program from secondary memory to main memory, then the process is created. So this process, selecting the creating and bringing new process into the system, is called as a long term or job scheduler, right? It selects the job from the pool of jobs in the hard disk and load those jobs to the main memory, that is called as a ready queue. Okay, so that one only we are representing in the format of the diagram. Okay, so that's why it is also called as the job scheduler. Okay, and you can consider the ready queue as a queue, so that consists of the two ends, that is the front end and rear end. The jobs are loaded to the ready queue through the front end, so you can consider this as a ready queue. Okay, so the jobs are loaded into the, these are loaded to the ready queue through the. So the next one is the short term or CPU scheduler. So it selects the job from ready queue and schedules it onto the running state. Okay, so it is going to select a particular job from the ready queue and place it in the CPU for execution. So why we are calling it short term means, so it is going to just load the process which are already available in the ready queue and place it in the running state. Okay, so that is the work of the short term scheduler. Okay, and the next one is the medium term scheduler. So in the medium term scheduler, so if a process requests an input output or in the middle of the execution, then removes the process is removed from the main memory and loaded to the waiting queue. So when the input output operation is completed, then the job will be moved from the waiting queue to the ready queue. So these two operations are performed by the medium term scheduler. Okay. Okay, so if a process is running and in the middle of the execution, if the process is removed by the main memory and it is again loaded to the main memory, then it is called as a medium term scheduler. So if a process is already executing and due to any input output interrupt, if it is blocked or if it is, if it is in blocked or waiting state and then again taken to the ready queue, then it is called as, it is done by the medium term scheduler. Okay, so if a process is running, if it finishes the execution, it will terminate, or else if it is blocked or in waiting state, if there is an interrupt, it will be in a blocked or waiting state. So after the interrupt finishes, then the medium term scheduler will it will again resume that process and it will place it in the ready queue for the execution. Okay, so this is called as a, this will be done by the medium term scheduler. And long term, so the name itself denotes that long term, so it is going to select the process from the secondary memory to the main memory and place it for execution. So it is taking a lengthy time, right? That's why it is called as a long term scheduler. So similarly, the short term scheduler, so it is going to place the uh, process which is readily available in the queue for execution by the CPU. Okay, so this is a short term, so it is taking very less amount of time, since so ready in the ready queue all the processes are already available, so uh, it is assigned to the CPU by the short term scheduler. In the short term scheduler there is a, so it is going to assign the process to the CPU by with the help of the dispatcher. Okay, so the function of the short term scheduler is to select a job from the ready queue and gives that control of the CPU to that process with the help of the dispatcher. So that's why the short term scheduler is also said to be CPU scheduler. So it is also called as a CPU scheduler. The method of selecting a process from the ready queue is depending on the CPU scheduling algorithm. And coming to the dispatcher here, so the main function of the dispatcher is the context switching. So it means switching the CPU from one process to another process and saving the context of the previous process. Okay, so the another function of the dispatcher is jumping to the proper location in the user program and ready to start the execution. So the degree of multi-programming is depend on the dispatch latency. So the time taken by the dispatcher to stop one process and start another, okay, by saving the previous process and again taking the new process, right? So the time it takes to stop one process and start another process running is known as the dispatch latency. So the degree of multi-programming is dependent on the dispatch latency. So if the dispatch latency is increasing, then the degree of multi-program will be decreased. Okay, so here the dispatcher will, with the help of the dispatcher, the process is assigned to the CPU. Okay, so the main function of the dispatcher is it is going to save the context of the previous process. Okay, and it will going to save the context of the previous process, and it is going to load the other process. Okay, so it will switch from one process to the another process and saves the previous context of the process and loads the new process. After the new process finishes the execution, it is again going to resume back the context of the previous process. Okay, and it will execute that previous process also. So this function is done by the dispatcher. Okay, so this is about the different types of schedulers and how they are going to work here. Okay, so here in the medium term scheduler also, so if your process is in the blocked or waiting state, and if it is free from the input output interrupt, then it is again placed to the ready queue for the execution. Okay, so these are the different types of schedulers and different functions of the schedulers. Thanks for watching my video. And next, coming to the CPU scheduling algorithm. The CPU scheduling algorithms, in the CPU scheduling algorithms, there are different types of parameters we have to know. So before going to the CPU scheduling algorithms, so in the scheduling methodology, so we are going to use the different types of terminology here for, okay, so here we are having the arrival time, burst time, completion time, turnaround time, waiting time, and response time. Okay, so when more than one process is runnable, the OS will depend on which one to run first. So the part of the OS concerned with this is called a scheduler, and the algorithm it uses is called as the scheduling algorithm. Okay, so the first one is the arrival time. Okay, so the time when process arrives to the ready queue. That means the time when the process entered the ready queue is called as the arrival time. And the burst time. So burst time means the time required to complete the execution. Okay. So here the arrival time means the time when the process enters the ready queue. So this is the ready queue. So when the time enters the ready queue. So at the 0 time the process entered the ready queue. And the burst time means the time required for completing the execution. So it may take 5 milliseconds. Okay, so 0 plus 5 is 5 milliseconds. And next one is the completion time, the time when process completes the execution. Here the process P has entered the ready queue, and the total amount of time it has taken to execute is the 5 milliseconds. Okay, so that's why the completion time is here 5 milliseconds. Okay, so here it is presented as the 5 milliseconds here. And the next one is the turnaround time. So turnaround time is the time interval between the arrival time and the completion time. So it is the interval between the submission of the process and the time of the completion is the completion. So the turnaround time is the sum of the periods spent waiting to get into the memory, waiting in the ready queue, executing on the CPU, and doing input output. So it is nothing but it is a sum of the waiting time in the ready queue and plus executing time and plus waiting time in the waiting queue for input output. So this is the combination of these three things: waiting time in the ready queue and waiting time in the input output and executing time. Okay, so next one is the waiting time. The time between the turnaround time and the burst time is called as the waiting time. So the formula is given as the turnaround time minus burst time. Similarly, for the formula for the turnaround time is arrival time minus completion time. So waiting time is the sum of the periods spent waiting by a process in the ready queue. So generally, CPU scheduling if you see CPU scheduling algorithm is having the least average waiting time, it is said to be the best algorithm. Okay. That means the waiting time represents the accuracy, and it is like a measure of performance because it does not include the time a process is executing on the CPU or performing input output. It includes only the time a process spends waiting. Okay, and the last one is the response time. So response time is the uh, it is the first scheduled time or first responded time. The response time is the time duration between the submission and the first response. For example, a process entered the ready queue at a time 10:05 a.m. but the process got the first response from the CPU at 10:10 a.m. So then the 10:05 and 10:10 is said to be the response time here. So in the case of the interactive systems only, the response time is mostly used. So the average time it takes the system to start responding to the user inputs. Okay. So this is about the response time. So it is the first scheduled time or first response given by the system. Okay. So as I said in the example, if the process enters the ready queue at 10:05, it got the call for execution at 10:10 a.m. So that is the first response from the CPU. And the next is the throughput. Okay, so throughput is the number of process a CPU can execute at a particular amount of time. Okay, evaluation of the throughput must consider the average length of a process. So on the system with long process, throughput will be less than on the systems with the short process. So it depends on the systems. So throughput means how many jobs are completed by the CPU within a period of time. As if as how we can estimate the performance of a student by his grade or the mark statements. Similar to that, a system performance is estimated through the throughput. So this is the terminology, basic scheduling terminology for the CPU scheduling algorithms, and this terminology we are going to apply on the given different types of scheduling algorithms, and we are going to calculate the arrival time, burst time, completion time, turnaround time, waiting time, and response time for each and every scheduling algorithm, and we are going to get the we are going to use that particular algorithm for the best output. And thanks for watching my video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.